Everybody good? Yeah? How's the day going so far? You all right? It's awesome. I know. You know, I'm kind of blown away by what everybody has been saying. There's some repeating messages, would you agree? Something about the airbag or the thing falling out, put your mask on first, right, Marilyn? A lot of those things are repeating, and a lot of those things are repeating for a reason, because they're all part of what I like to call the secret sauce, which is what we're going to talk about this afternoon for a little while. This is really about leadership. It's about a little bit about the way women look at leadership. There are some differences, I think, in the way that we approach it, but I think the most important thing is that there is a commonality, there's a common driver to it, and that's what I'd really like to talk with you about today to figure that out. You know, leadership is one of those funny things, and hopefully the technology works right now so I can walk around and talk with some of you too. Let's see. It did. Yay. Leadership is one of those things that we talk about a lot. It's out there, we read about it, it's been written about, how do you really put your arms around it? What is it really? We kind of know it when we see it. We know it when we hear it. And I don't know about all of you, but I sure know it when I feel it. And we can all think of different characteristics that we can say, oh, that's leadership. Oh, that's charismatic. That's engaging. That's whatever that is. But what is it really? And that's what I want to talk to you about today. And we're going to talk about it in regard to three things. Joe, you'll wonder why I brought a guy into the room with us today. Brains and sauce. So let me start with Joe. As we talked about in the Real Talk panel, and this is not about me, but I have had a few different careers. And in the first one, I worked in a nonprofit setting for in a small rural town. There were 2 employees, there were 250 volunteers that we worked with. And I was running that organization. And part of my job was to connect to and build relationships with all of these volunteers. They were our lifeblood. They were the heart of the organization. And among those folks was this gentleman by the name of Joe. At the time, he was about 50 years old. He was one of those fellas that wore a ball cap, and I don't know, maybe some of you are old enough in this room to remember those old engineer uniforms, the blue shirt, the blue pants, you know, and the steel-toed boots and, you know, the safety glasses and all of that. That was Joe. He didn't have a job. He didn't have a title. He didn't have a social security number. He didn't have a bank account. He didn't have a driver's license. He's the only person I've ever known, probably ever will know in my entire life, that the federal government doesn't know he's alive. It was pretty cool. And he did all of that because he did live in a small town and he could get away with it. But it was also because he didn't care to be known that way. He was just Joe. He was one of the most smart, intelligent, capable individuals he was one of the most well-read people I've ever known. He could quote all kinds of literature and nonfiction. He could fix anything, whether it be a mechanical structure, a computer, a light fixture, plumbing. And he would do it for anybody in need. He was the most caring, loving, connected, genuine, authentic individual in the world. And he just looked out for everybody in a very quiet, kind of under-the-radar way. And many of you have probably read Good to Great. Joe was the perfect hedgehog. Amongst this organization, there were also 21 really, really very important people that sat on the board of directors. Those were the people that I reported to. And I will tell you till the end of time, all of the people that remember Joe, remember him for sure. They will never forget him, and I'll bet you none of them can remember one of those very important people on the board. So what does this have to do with leadership? Well, that's kind of why we're here. Think it's part of the secret sauce? Of course it is. So I ask you, what is leadership? Shout it out. Just give me an idea. What is it to you? Influence. Example. Caring. Inspire. What was the other one? Confidence. Charismatic. Vision. Empowering. Ambitious. Okay, let's take a little, those are all great. The list can go on. We're going to talk more about this in a moment. A quiz. Shout out the answers. 5 wealthiest people in the world. Quick, you're on a time frame. Buffett, Oprah, Bill Gates. Okay, good. Smart crowd. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Okay, next. Last 6 Time Magazine People of the Year. Obama. Shout it out. Women of power, shout it out. Beyonce? Okay. Ready for the next one? 5. 5 Nobel or Pulitzer Prize winners. Okay, we're getting some of them. Good. I'm sorry? Derek Walcott. Very good. Okay. And the last 5 Best Picture, Best Actor, or Best Actress Academy Award winners. Meryl Streep. She should always win. She's my favorite. Jennifer Lawrence. Okay. Good job. You guys are getting them. Okay, you ready for the next one? Okay, what about this one? 5 teachers or coaches who helped you through school. Quickly. Miss Brown. Right. Mrs. Murphy. Right. 6 friends who helped you through difficult times. Yeah? All right. 5 people who taught you something worthwhile. Your grandmother, Mrs. Rudolph, my mom. And finally, 5 people who made or make you feel appreciated and special. Veronica, kids. Women of power. Absolutely. Love that. I paid her. That was good. Okay. Which one was easier, the first one or the second one? Why? It's personal. It was about you. It was somebody who understands you, knows you, cares about you. You bet. John Maxwell is a guru in leadership development, and this is the way he put it. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Think that makes sense? Think it has something to do with leadership? You bet it does. How do we measure it? Is it gender? Are women better leaders than men? Are men better leaders than women? Yes? Well, I would have to agree with you, at least in some ways we are. I don't know that we're actually better, I think we're different. I think we're all different. We're going to talk about that a little bit. What about IQ? How smart you are? Does that have to do with what a great leader you are? No. Position? Title? Socioeconomic status? The kind of car you drive? The kind of house you live in? The kind of friends you have? Any of that have to do with leadership? Okay. How do we measure it? Impact. Decisiveness. Feeling. Significance. All those things are absolutely true, and where do they come from? Right? We measure leadership by what we see, what we hear, and what we feel that we respond to in the behavior of others. We see you do a thing. Do you walk your talk? Right? Do you inspire? Do you motivate? Do you care? Those are all exhibited in certain kinds of behavior. So that's really what allows us to measure leadership. Think about all that for a moment. We'll come back to it in just a second, because now I want to address that difference between kind of the way that we lead. Women lead a little bit differently. I don't know about all of you, but I certainly have struggled a lot throughout my life trying to balance kind of the left brain and the right brain. Our right brains are, and we all have a dominant one, by the way. We have both, hopefully. Oh, and oh, by the way, it's another topic, but we do hear voices in our head. Really, we do. We do. We have 3 voices talking to us all the time. Yeah, I'll tell you about those. Ask me later. I'll tell you what they are. But we have a right brain, which is all this creative stuff, all this stuff that's jumping around all the time. I'm a real right brainer, big time. But we also have a left brain that's very analytical. And I just forgot her name. Smoots. Barb, thank you. Yeah, was talking about the left brain, and that's so important for us to develop our left brain and to be very, very cognizant and aware of what are those things that we know in a very practical and application to get the job done and do it well and get the results that we're after. So those are skills and knowledge that we develop. But the right brain is also very important, and how do we balance it? Because a lot of times our behavior reflects the right brain in warmth, in compassion, in creativity, in emotion, in all of those things. And the left brain speaks to, our accountant side, our CPA sides, our bankers, our attorneys, our doctors, all the people that have those highly technical skills. So how do you balance that? And sometimes that left brain feels like strength, the right brain feels like warmth, and sometimes one or the other and too much is inappropriate for a particular situation. So as women, I think we think about this stuff a whole lot more, and we try to balance it a whole lot more. I know just in my experience in working in a man's world for so many years, that right brain is pretty much asleep a lot of the time. But it doesn't make them bad leaders. The best leaders I've known, and I've known a lot of them, a lot of male leaders that are absolutely incredible. They have a good balance of warmth and strength. So that's really what we're looking for. And I think when we do that, it starts to transcend gender, IQ, position, title, power, all of those things. We become more like Joe, where we're just very confident and very sure in who we are. We have a good balance of left and right brain, and we really, really care. So we put them all together, make them all go away, and we just kind of lump them together and say, okay, I'm going to work on this. Isn't that fun? I know. Isn't that fun? Put them together so that we feel very confident, and test yourself. Put yourself out there with this. Try the right brain in some situations. Try the left brain in some situations and see which one is going to work better for you. And then weigh that and remember it and blend them together. You can be strong and warm at the same time. If you've ever had to compassionately fire somebody, you know what I'm talking about, right? Man, you're great. Lady, you're great. We love you. We would love to have you stay here, but we realize that your talents and your expertise will explode somewhere else. Let us help you make that transition. Blend your strength and your warmth. If you lead from this place, most of the time, I think you will have more success. Now sometimes, and I had this conversation not too long ago with some colleagues about, so when do you draw the line and just bring the hammer down? I've had to do that, sure. I think we all do upon occasion. I just make sure I put a pillow around it or wrap it in velvet. It still thunks, but it doesn't break. So, all these words about leadership, there are tons of them. We could go on and on. We could make a long, long, long list, an endless list of all these characteristics. Think about people you admire, people you really respect as leaders in your life, in the press, in politics, in the community, whatever it may be. And I'll bet you'll see some of these words up here. So when we think about leadership in terms of ourselves and defining that and deciding what our form, we've heard this all today. I love it. Personal brand, having a vision, this is all about our internal leadership, which grows and develops our strength to lead formally in with other people and in other situations. So what do you do with this? Which one do you pick first? There's so many of them out there. What do you want to start on? Having an idea of what your strengths are to begin with helps. But what I've done over the years is I've pulled it together into 5 different areas that are common threads in every organization I've ever worked with in my life. And they are people, strategy, structure, process, and reward and recognition, which creates collaboration. I'm a very visual person, so I put it into this 5-pointed star. So we get the people, we get the strategy, of course, which guides the organization. We talked about that a lot today, if you were in one of the other breakouts. Personal strategy as well as organizational and professional strategy. This is part of that magic. It's part of that secret sauce that makes stuff work, that allows us to actually achieve our goals when we get them clearly set. So then you put some structure around that, you put some processes in place around it, you align people to it, and then you get reward and recognition systems in place so that everybody can work in collaboration. But the most important thing about this is the leadership piece that ties it all together. Now we're talking about internal leadership, leadership of self. What does that mean? All those words you were saying, all those words we just put up there, is that also in here that is then coming into your contact with other people in your formal leadership? Because the people piece is the only thing that really matters here if any of this other stuff is going to have any presence, because none of that matters without the people. And that's leadership. Leadership in and of itself, now if you're kind of getting an idea here, we're starting at a really, really big place and we're kind of working our way down into more and more detail. And when you get down to the people piece, then you have to think about, so what is this leadership thing? Let's go back to that question. Well, again, I think it's easier if we can break things down into little bits and little bites that we can chew off one at a time. So this is what I've created as the sauce part. Okay? I'm going to give you a whole lot of ingredients into the sauce, and then we'll give it the kicker that drives it, that makes it work. And oh, by the way, you are surrounded by it today. It's here today. You all have it today. So let's talk about it. The secret sauce has 3 ingredients and a kicker. The first is inspire. Inspire is to hear what you've heard all day today. Find it. What inspires you? What is your purpose? What is your passion? What do you really care about? And are you aligned with that? Have you really, really thought about that? And are you doing right now, where are you spending your time? Are you spending your time in that area that you care the most about? And if you are, great. Write it down. We've heard that before too. Then what do you do with it? Well, you got to have a plan. So then you're going to ignite it, right? You got to put a plan around it with action steps and figure it out, because hope is not a strategy. Wishing is not a strategy. You got to do something with it. Then what do? You take action. Impact. You need to impact yourself and impact everybody else that you're coming into contact with, and you need to do it with purpose and intention and all that stuff we've been talking about all day. And then there's this little kicker thing, and this is where I always get into trouble. Every time I talk about this, because it's a 4-letter word. Is Raquel here? No, I think she left. Oh, good, because she doesn't know this either. Yeah, I know. You will be offended. You will be scared. Men get really a lot more offended by this than women. But it is a real scary word, and if any of you have an issue with it, I welcome you to come up and we can have that conversation offline. I'm going to share it with you now. Okay, I'm going to go over here. You ready? Aww, I know. Some of this is warm and fuzzy, and some of it isn't, and I'm real serious about this. I'm not talking about the, sweet mystery of life, at last I found you, and send me roses and champagne. That's not the kind of love I'm talking about, although that's always nice too. What I'm talking about is the basic love we all have in our hearts for our fellow human beings. I mean, my gosh, what else is there? If that's not the primary motivation of wanting to become the absolute best human being we can be, the best leader that we can be in our hearts, holding our own selves accountable internally for the decisions that we're making in our lives and the way that we live our lives, and then transcending that out into the external universe and everybody that we contact every single day. That's what this is about. It's not about liking everybody that you have to work with or that you do work with or that you run into in the world. It's about respect. It's about understanding, asking for understanding, trying to understand others before you need to be understood. It's about listening more than talking. It's about all that stuff we've been talking about all day and that we all know anyway, but sometimes we just have to call it out, and it's love. It's being in that really great place where you actually smile at somebody in the elevator and say, hey, how are you? Instead of staring at the numbers. It's stepping out, it's stepping up, it's going out of our comfort zones, it's everything you've heard today, but it's wrapped up in that one word. It's the kicker. It's the driver. If you got that, you're going to be successful. You already are successful. And then, this is the most important part of all. We talked about it in the panel discussion. Oh, do pay it forward. Please, take a nugget, take something that you have learned or that you have relearned or that you've heard again or you've been inspired with or empowered by, and empower somebody else with it too. That's what leadership is. So I have a question for you. Leaders born or made? Both? Why? Made? Some people don't. I have a theory about this. And it's usually that kind of a debate. We can have some real long conversations about this. But one of my core beliefs is that the capacity for leadership exists within each one of us. It may look very different from person to person to person. It shines through in different ways, but we all have the capacity for it. It's whether or not we choose to develop it in our own way. My leadership may look very different than yours, and everybody else in this room has a different way of going about it. But that's the thing. It's all about what it is to you and unleashing that, going forward with it. And I just simply call this I to the power of 3. It's a phrase that really sums it up. In all the years that I've been asking the question since I met Joe, what is leadership? What is it? What is it? This is it. It's I inside to the power of 3, knowing what my passion is, my purpose, igniting that with a plan, and impacting that with action. That's the simple formula. And that's the secret sauce. Does that make sense? Okay. You all knew this, right? I just put it in a real pretty little diagram for you. Okay. So, let's talk about those component parts. And again, we've heard some of this already today. This is just a reinforcement of that. And it's so important. It's great to hear it again. That it's the inspire piece that are your values, your vision, guiding principles. What's a vision? Yes, ma'am. Okay, it's what you believe. It's how you can make a difference, right? I've been in these shoes all day. I'm not trusting them anymore. Okay. Thanks, Mireille. What else? What's a vision? Yes, ma'am.
Seeing something that doesn't exist currently.
It's something that you're shooting for, that you want to aim for? Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, like I always look at a vision as like your mission, but the fluffier version of your mission, like how you want to reach that mission.
Oh, that's so good. That's absolutely right. The vision is like the big dream that's out there. It's the big fluffy thing, right? Yeah, it's really, really out there. But the mission is how you're going to get there. And I'm so glad, it's almost like I paid you to say that. Because there are missions that go along, that change as you go along, right? You kind of get one for this section, and the next for the next year, and the next for the next 6 months, or whatever. Absolutely. Any other thoughts on vision? Yes, ma'am. That can drive you? Yeah.
But like really meaningful fluff, you know.
Do you have a vision?
For myself, not quite so much, but I've built them for others mostly.
Going to work on yours? Yes. Good. Okay, great. Anybody else? Vision. Cool. You got it. Great. What are your values? What do you live by? What are those things that are closest to your heart that are non-negotiable? What are your values? Anybody want to share one or two of theirs?
That's okay. Integrity, meaning do the right thing even if it's the hardest, because you said you would.
And even when nobody's looking, right? Right.
First of all, I'm very impressed with you running around in your shoes. So that's pretty impressive. But to be respectful.
Respectful.
Yes.
Of self and others. Yeah, start here with that mask.
Honesty, even when there's a problem, you have to at least tell people about it, because you can't fix a problem unless you know about it and can work together as a team.
Yeah, what happens when you aren't honest in the very beginning with a problem? What happens?
It grows and people get upset when they don't know that they could have helped you before it was a big issue. So a little issue becomes a big issue.
And then it's just 10 times harder to solve, right? Values. Who else has one to share? Yes, ma'am.
God, family, and in my household, football.
Oh my God, you talked to my husband, didn't you? Yeah, right, exactly. Yes. I loved it. Thank you very much. Yes, football.
Compassion.
Compassion, yes.
Loyalty is very important to me.
Why?
I think you should have loyalty to people as you go through life. Never forget people that have always been there for you and really value those people.
Wonderful. What else? Ladies.
Always treat others the way you want to be treated.
Hard work and effort.
Anybody else?
Honesty. I feel that it's very important to be who you say you are and do the things that you say you're going to do, and be very upfront about who you are at all times.
Excellent. Yes.
Commitment.
Commitment. It's a good one. I'm getting my exercise now. This is great.
Gratitude.
Oh, I love that. Gratitude. Gratitude. Everybody have a little gratitude every morning? Yeah? I sit down with my beagle on the floor before I do my stretches, and she and I decide what we're grateful for today. She's always grateful for something extraordinary. Did you have something? Okay, one more. Keep our eye on the time.
In the military, in addition to what a lot of people said, which were some of our core values and something I live by, we have loyalty, duty, respect, personal courage, selfless service, honor, and integrity. And those are really important values that I live by.
Those are awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you. Values, the non-negotiables. We have one more? Yes, ma'am. I'm going to take off my shoes.
Authenticity.
Oh, yeah. Authenticity. Be you. Be genuine. Do all of your organizations, whether you are an entrepreneur or work for an organization, have values? Do you all know what they are? Good. Yes? Yes? Let me hear that again. Yes? Yes? Yes. I see you guys. If you don't, now would be a great time when you leave here. That might be one of those things you want to do when you leave here, is to find out what they are. Read the vision statement, read the mission statement, look at the values, and look at that and say, gee, what do I agree with here? What also connects with me? Because this is why I'm here, and this is the contribution I can make to this organization. This is the contribution I can make to my family. What are your family values? All that. This is so critical. And also, we have principles and guidelines. Kind of falls in the same thing, except when we talk about principles and guidelines, now what we're talking about are those things that you have in place in your life and in your profession that when nobody else is around and you need to make a decision, or some of your colleagues need to make a decision in isolation, they know exactly what boundaries and guidelines they need to use to make those decisions, so it's always the right one that's in alignment with your values, that's in alignment with driving the vision forward. Make sense? So you need to know what those are too. That's real important. There are a couple of other leadership gurus out there by the last name of Kouzes and Posner, and they came up with what they call the 5 principles of exemplary leadership. This is based on about 30 years of really intense and deep work, research from around the globe. And what they were trying to find, what they were trying to accomplish, is what are the common threads that all people agree upon are those things that are leadership, that represent leadership. And this is what they came up with. The first one is to inspire a shared vision. Not inspire my vision, inspire a shared vision. That's what I was referring to just a moment ago. What is the vision, and what part of you shares that, especially in corporations? You might not share the entire thing, but there's a piece of it that you're going to connect to. That's where the spark ignites, right there. The second one is to model the way. Simply put, walk the talk. If what you're saying is different and contradicts your behavior, what happens? Respect is lost. Trust is lost. Everything is lost. Challenge the process. This is hard for human beings. It's really hard for women sometimes to actually step up and say, gosh, we've always done it this way, and why should we do it any other way? Challenge it. If it ain't broke, break it sometimes. If you think it can be done better. A lot of times, just keep this in mind, and this is just a little bit of a political savvy spin on this, break it, but do it in the right way, right? It's not so much what you say sometimes, it's how you say it. It's the tone of your voice. 55% of our communication is body language, 38% is in the tone of our voice. And the rest is the words we use. So think about that as you go forward. Finally, enable others to act. Give them the tools, give them the knowledge, make sure the attitudes are aligned, everybody's in a really great place with what they're doing. You got the team thing going on and all of that. Give them what they need and let them do it. Let them shine. Let them be the best they can be. And then finally, life is tough. The journey is tough. The road is long. Encourage the heart. That's that love piece coming back in. Funny how that thing keeps circulating around all of this. When you wrap it up in that, when that leadership word becomes love around all this stuff, it can be tough love, but at least it's done with caring and compassion. Next, you're going to ignite all this. Now you're going to put a plan around it. And I'm going to do some shorthand with you on this just to move us along, and let me do a time check. How long do we? 10 minutes? Thank you. I appreciate it. Perfect. Igniting it, planning it, goals, culture. What is all this about? Plan it. Actually sit down and do a plan, and I'm going to give you a real quick formula for that. It's not too in-depth, but you can run with it. Just take the big pieces of it and go. So the planning piece is this: write a vision. The vision is the big thing in the sky. It's way out there. It's got a pretty long time frame on it. My vision is the Harmony Inn. Again, be happy to chat with anybody about that. The mission is, what am I going to do in the next 6 to 12 months to get me closer to the vision? Write it out. It gets a little more specific, a little more time-bound. Then, each one of those, each mission has a set of critical goal categories. These are big goal categories that are high priorities right now that you need to accomplish. Never have more than 6, don't have less than 3. So between 3 and 6 critical goal categories that you have to tackle. These are big buckets now, not specifics yet. Each one of those critical goal categories, put it in a column, and underneath that write the very specific why SMART goals, which I'll explain in a moment, underneath that critical goal category. What do you need to do to fulfill that, to move to the next step? Once you do that, write the action steps, put it in a timeline, put it in your calendar, you get results. Go back to the beginning and start over again. What's your next mission? And move on from there. That's all part of that strategy piece. But it's enabling your leadership. It's allowing you to step into that space. The goals are why SMART, which means they are written. We heard that. It was a great message this morning. They are harmonious. They are in line with your vision. They are supporting your vision. And oh, they are yours. They're not anybody else's. It's just like you become you, not somebody else, not who you've been told you are all your life, really become you. That's the same thing with goals. And then they're smart. They're specific. They're measurable. They're attainable. They're realistic, and they're timely. You get them down to this specificity and this much detail, and then you write the action plans around them and go forward. Now, here's what'll get in your way. This is how we build cultures, is attitudes, right? What's an attitude? An attitude is a value and belief. 95% of our values and beliefs are formed before we are 5 years old. What are they based on? Don't talk to strangers. Don't write on the wall. Don't touch the stove, you get burned. Don't walk on the grass, you'll kill the seeds. Don't cross the street, you'll get hit by a car. It's all the negative stuff, but it's all the stuff that we say to our kids to protect them, and there's nothing wrong with that. Because we also say you can be anything you want to be, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're all those things. But by the time we get into our late teens and early 20s, and oh, by the way, these are who the behavioral psychologists tell us all this, I didn't make this up, really. We get to our teens, and now we're thinking, oh gosh, I can't go to that college because I'm not smart enough. I can't get that guy's attention because I'm not pretty enough. I'm not thin enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'll tell you what, ladies, this stuff becomes habits of thought so that our brains start reacting. Our subconscious brain doesn't know what is true or false. It only knows what we tell it, and it's been told that we have these limitations, that we need to be fearful and afraid of becoming who we really are, of becoming that leader that we were meant to be. So we need to get rid of these habits of thought, and that just comes with awareness. Awareness of the values and beliefs, awareness of when those habits of thoughts are triggered and what we do to get around them. Be aware of them, and then just say, wait a minute, I'm going to think about this a little bit differently right now. Because all of this creates our behavior, and what is the measure of leadership? Behavior. So that's where all this stuff is coming from. So when you see bad behavior in others, there may be some of this stuff cooking underneath the surface. So maybe you can help them, coach them a little bit to become a little bit more aware and to start changing some of these behaviors into good leadership behavior. This is what creates impact within your cultures and builds the kinds of organizations, families, and lives that allow you to play in a space where you can really, really, really achieve your full potential. And that's what we're all about. That's leadership. Also, creating safe zones. We talk about this a lot in our organizations. It was the one piece of magic that we had in the corporation in which I worked for so many years. I kind of called it the Camelot area of my career until it all kind of went awry. But during that time, we had safe zones. Safe zones were based on trust. We trusted each other. We had each other's backs. Our teams knew that. And we knew that what happened within our walls was Las Vegas. What happened there stayed there, right? We didn't take it out into the world. We just dealt with it and moved on. And then when we did go out into the world, we went out into it with a united front, all understanding our vision, our values, our principles, our guidelines. It's trust. Someone brought this up earlier. It was integrity and trust and honesty and all of that. That's what really builds the heart of relationships and the heart of successful organizations. So then we have to take some action around this. We just can't sit there, right? We got to do something with it. You have some handouts that went around the room before we opened up this session. And on there, it gives you an opportunity to kind of, I don't know, just record some of your thoughts around some of this as you go along. Something to take home and think about and look at. This is part of it in a nutshell. Let's assume that you found a critical goal category to fulfill a mission in the short term. Now you need to put a little bit of action around that. What's the why smart goal? What is the very, very specific goal, the very first one, the top priority that you need to achieve? Maybe you're starting a business, as one of the ladies said earlier, and maybe you need money. Maybe that's your first action step. Where are you going to go? How are you going to get it? That becomes a very, very specific goal, specific enough to say I'm going to pick up the phone at 3 o'clock on Monday afternoon and I am going to call all these organizations to find out how I can go pursuing getting funding for my new business. Maybe that's it. What's the result that you will get when you do that? You'll be able to start your business. What's the obstacle if you don't? You won't be able to start your business. Is that compelling enough to go forward? Is that going to get you moving? Absolutely. What's the solution when of the obstacles that get in my way? What's my timeline and who's accountable? Most of the time it's going to be you. Maybe every now and then it's somebody else too. A riddle. Ready? Everybody awake? 5 frogs are sitting on a log, and one decides to jump off. How many frogs are left on the log? 0. 5. What else? 4. Okay. Anybody else? Well, why would it be 5, Beth? Exactly right. He only decided to jump. There's 5 still on there. He only decided to jump. He didn't really jump. So you can go away from today and you can say, well, I've decided that I'm going to take all this new information, these great nuggets that I have from all these breakouts and all these fabulous keynotes and workshops, and I'm going to decide to do something with it. And now it's a month later. Did you jump off the log? Probably not. Really, just take one thing. Keep it small, keep it easy, the one thing that's really resonated with you and go from there. Because once you do that, stuff happens. You make a splash. I work really hard on this stuff. A little more reaction would be really helpful. Thank you. Jeez. I sit for hours. I am not a technical person, people, really. Jeez, man, give me some love. I need the love. All right. Okay, what's next? So, we talked about Joe. We all have Joe in us, right? We all have that piece of leadership. Ladies, it's not about titles. It's not about position. It's not about how smart we are, how pretty we are, how anything we are. It's not about that. We've talked about this today. It's about what's in here. How are we paying it forward? How are we leading ourselves first? Because the quality of our self-leadership will be directly reflected in the quality of our formal leadership with others. And are we in tune with that? Are we paying attention? Right brain, left brain. Warmth, strength. Use them both. Balance them. Test them. Really be aware. Again, this is something you just really need to bring into your consciousness and play with it. See what works best for you. There have been every single person who has been involved in this conference today, has been up here chatting, has a great balance of this because they see both sides, are using both sides. Barb talked about this. I mean, that's just so cool. You gotta develop this and use this to drive it. It's the 3 eyes and the kicker is what it is. And then we have that secret sauce. That's what it is. Now, none of you can tell anybody when you leave here because it's secret. You got that, right? I'm kidding. Okay. Does anybody have, I think we have just a couple minutes left. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I'm happy to come back out there and have you bring up anything at all. Yes, ma'am. Coming right over.
No wonder you look like you do. You're racing around like a little racehorse. Yay! Roxanne, what was the aha moment for you? One of the things, because you've had many probably, one of the things that was pivotal in changing your direction in life?
At which point? In which life? Yeah, I know. And we all have stories, like Raquel said. We all have our journey. I'm going to go to the one that happened to me when I left my corporate career. That and the combination of my father's death, which was very, very unexpected, just was huge to me. Because I had worked in a small company. I'll keep this really brief. It was a small company. It was the construction chemicals company. I call it, I used to call it kind of like the Wizard of Oz, because there were 3 owners, 3 American owners. And they were the Tin Man, the Scarecrow, and the Lion, and I was Dorothy. And the only thing I didn't have was a Toto, too. But it was a wonderful organization, and we grew a $2 million company to a $25 million company in about 7.5 years. And we did that by changing the direction, the vision, and the attitude of the company from a product-focused organization to a people-focused organization, and really helping our clients and our customers to be successful. When that happened, we were bought out by a very, very large $46 billion company, and the world changed forever. They came in and said nothing was changed. I believed them. I was just naive enough to say, oh, okay, cool, these guys are great. What they did was they took the human element, the human being element, the love element out of everything that we were doing, took it right down to the balance sheet. Now, I know that's real left brain, and I know we have to do that sometimes, but I don't believe personally we ever have to sacrifice human beings to do that. And that's what I saw. And I was in an executive position in the company, and I was asked to start making decisions that flew in the face of every value, every principle, everything that I am, and I just couldn't do it any longer. And it was heartbreaking to me because I had helped build the company. It was heartbreaking. These people were my family. And I had to walk away. At that time, my father got very ill, and we had no idea what was going on, and he was a man that I loved dearly, but did not fulfill his potential in any way, shape, or form. He was one of the most, sorry Dad, one of the most self-destructive individuals I've ever known. And he died shortly thereafter. So it was like a whole bunch of stuff, wow, happening all at once. And that's when I got up one morning and I looked in the mirror and I said, girlfriend, there's only one person in the world that's going to make this right for you, and that's you. You need to figure out what you're going to do and then cross the river and burn the boat and go buy yourself some red shoes. Which I did. Didn't wear them today, but I have them. And a lot of them. And that was a pivotal moment because it was just like I realized at that point that I had so far been able to carve my own way. And I never had mentors or any, that's why I'm so passionate about this work, because I didn't have mentors. There was nobody there like a Raquel doing a conference like this. There weren't the programs that we have today, the mentoring programs or the women's conferences or the women's councils or circles. that all our great companies are doing. You just had to scrap it out. And that's what I did every step of the way. And then I realized I was pretty fortunate in doing that because I was finding my own value systems as I went along. But when I was faced with having to compromise those to get a paycheck, I was like, okay, what are you going to do with that? Who are you as a person? Sorry, it was a bit of a long story, but you're welcome. Thank you. Anybody else? We have just a second or two. Oh, thanks. There's one right over there. Thank you so much. It takes a minute.
My question is regarding mistakes. And to give you some context, early in a career, when you're maybe meeting different leaders, you think that you kind of have to be perfect to, because they've been doing everything right. You want to follow in their footsteps. Yeah. And then more recently, I attended a conference, and the comment was, we in Cleveland, entrepreneurs, we have to be okay with failure, because in Silicon Valley, they make mistakes, and it's almost like a badge of courage. Here, it's like you don't want to make a mistake. And personally, yes, I feel like failure is not an option. But mistakes happen, and with the secret sauce, you're bound to make some. So how can you overcome them? Can you? And is there second chances?
I would say yes, 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 and yes. Mistakes do happen. They happen to all of us. Now, I'm going to qualify this just a little bit, because it depends a lot upon the environment in which you are working. And you don't always have control over how mistakes are being perceived or tolerated by other people in the organization, and sometimes, quite frankly, they can be your boss, and I get that, I understand that. But internally for us, I think mistakes are absolutely essential. If you're not making mistakes, you're not growing, you're not reaching, you're not going out there, you're not testing yourself, you're not honing yourself into your own full potential. I think mistakes are absolutely necessary. No. Do we like them? Absolutely not. Do we want to avoid them? Sure we do. But you're going to make them if you're growing, if you're stretching, if you're going out there. If you live your life, my opinion only, but if you live your life afraid of making mistakes, you're going to stay in a place of mediocrity and average. You'll never be great. It's just like visions, you'll never be greater than the vision that guides you. Make it big, make the leap. And I hope that helps, but I understand sometimes you're in an environment where mistakes are not tolerated, and I understand that. So maybe there's a part of that you need to play under the radar a little bit. But I would ask myself, and I'll probably get in big trouble, and I mean this seriously, so don't listen to this. Really, really look at where you are and if that's the best fit. And I think we're about done. I think we have everything. Ladies, I want to thank you so much for the entire day. You are all absolutely incredible, and I have one last request for you. There's a very important person in the room with us today, and I've kind of kept her a secret until now. So would that most important person in this room please stand up? Everybody better get on their feet. Thank you, ladies. Now, before you sit down, take your right arm and put it behind the person standing next to you. Pat him on the back and repeat after me. You are powerful. Now, take your other arm, put it around the other person, and repeat. You are powerful.
Ladies, the last and final keynote speaker will be in this room within 5 minutes.